right, Mark. So here's a question that I got recently. Someone I've been talking to who had moved into a new role and was really excited about the role, really happy about it. I've been doing some coaching them. They're overseas in Europe, and they have someone that they were working for that is in the United States. So they weren't able to see each other all the time. When they started off, it was a great interview, great process, really loved it. And then she said to me, something's changed. And she wasn't sure what was going on, but there was a different tone, a different tenor in the relationship. Something was a little bit more formal. And she was being asked for things that she hadn't been asked before. She also had some theories about interaction she had with somebody else in the organization, and maybe these people were friends she didn't know. But the bottom line was something changed in the relationship, and she wasn't at a place where she could just immediately sit down face to face with that person and figure it out. So what do you do when a relationship changes? She was feeling all sorts of doubts around, well, is it really changing, or is that just me imagining it? If I say anything, will it cause the problem that isn't there? So how does someone handle it when it feels like things have changed, not for the better, and they don't know why? What do you think?
Look, here's the way I think we could start thinking about this, or I would certainly advise or coach somebody to start thinking about this. If I've got the client with me, what we're going to suspect is we don't have the other person with us. So there's a ghost out there that we don't have access to, and so we can theorize about them, but it's just theory, and there may not be a lot that we can directly do about it. So we have to start with the client, the person who we actually have, on camera with us or in the room with us. And so my immediate suspicion is to go, look, what has actually changed for you? Yeah, what's changed for you right now? What in your life has changed? And is there a possibility that is the real change? Look, you said it to me once, Michael. I think it's brilliant. It's either you or me, or you and me. Okay? There's three potential suspects here. Either something's changed for me, or something has changed for you, or something has changed for both of us. But if you're not in the room with me, all I can do is think, what's changed for me? And then try and get a solution around that. Now, I think I have some ideas around how you might be able to actually approach that person and bring up maybe the courage or have the technique to approach that person with a question around what may have changed for them. But before I go there, chances are you've got some really good ideas on that as well. So Michael, what's your gut instinct on this, and what does your technique and your intellect tell you about this?
You're right. We need to be able to, though, to get into the conversation at some point, and it is a really challenging conversation to have. I think, one of the best things can be, can you cite something that's clearly different and then just say, hey, this seemed a little bit out of the ordinary for us. Is all good? Is everything going on, right? Anything going on that, we hear that we need to talk about? But one of the most difficult things about having that conversation, as you and I both know, is if you haven't given yourself the permission, and if there's no psychological safety to have it, when I say just reach out and say, hey, have things changed? People are gonna be like, well, I don't know if I want to confront it. So one of the things you might want to think about in relationships with key people, especially people you work for, and this is something that I always do, and frankly, I do it with my clients now that I'm no longer a corporate executive, when I say, hey, how do you behave when things go sideways or wrong? Here's how I usually behave. What will we do if that happens? Now, some people think that's a negative conversation to get into at the start of a relationship, but it really does help because it lets you lay out what it might look like. And so now I can refer back and say, hey, when we first started working together, you said that sometimes you get a little more distant and formal if things aren't going well. Couldn't be totally my imagination, but this communication felt a little more formal. Is everything okay? I'm just checking in per our earlier conversation. Now you're continuing a conversation. Now you've been invited into it because you created the invitation up front, and that allows you to actually do something about it. So you may be able to avoid the difficulty of breaking through it if you've telegraphed it beforehand in your relationship. But Mark, I know you have some other ideas as well. So tell me, what are some of your other ideas about connecting and approaching on this situation where it feels like things have changed, but I just don't know?
Yeah, I've just got one more idea for you, and which is this. Look, if you can have an idea of what may have changed for you, you could approach that person with an ask for help on that. So you could go, look, I need a quick conversation because I need some help. Here's what seems to have changed for me at the moment. And here's the way, here's what's happening in my performance around that, or here's how I'm feeling about it, or here's how I'm communicating around that at the moment. This has changed and here's what's happening for me around that. Can you give me some help around that? And their conversation with you, because look, you're asking for help. And if you've got another colleague and you've asked for their help and they're not going to give you any help, then that's a good indicator of something. Okay, that this is not necessarily a good relationship. But if you ask for that help, they may well open up to you with something helpful, and also they may well suggest what's changed for them. Okay, and you may get some insight from that. What could also happen as well is now you've put forward, look, something's changed for me. I'd love some help with that, and I'm curious, has anything changed for you? And they might open up around that, and you may get closer to the reality, the truth of what's going on. I mean, both of those techniques I think we've given there are just ways of having a slightly softer entry into what is, inevitably a very tricky conversation. But it is having those trickier conversations that marks you out as a leader and can get, greater work done. Look, if this is useful for you or interesting for you, you like this conversation, let us know down below. But most of all, if you've got a thought, a comment, a question, a burning issue that you'd like our answers on, our thoughts on, stick those down below. Or if it's a little bit sensitive, just DM it to us and we can tackle it there. Good to see you all.